Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today, we are going to tackle a topic that I know a lot of you can relate to. If you've ever felt like swiping through dating profiles is less of an adventure and more like a second unpaid job, you are definitely not alone. It's this widespread feeling of just exhaustion and frustration that actually has a name: dating burnout. So we're going to break down exactly why modern dating can feel so draining and, more importantly, what the research says you can actually do about it. Let's get into it.
All right, let's kick things off with a number that really sets the scene. A survey by Forbes Health found that a staggering 79% of Gen Z daters feel mentally and emotionally exhausted by the whole process. I mean, think about that. That's not some small, niche feeling. It's practically a mainstream epidemic. So if you're feeling that fatigue, this number right here is your validation. It's a real, shared response to the way we date now, and we're going to unpack it.
So what is this feeling we're talking about? Well, it's dating burnout. You can think of it as a state of emotional and mental exhaustion, and it's caused by that constant pressure and, let's be honest, the frequent disappointment that comes with dating apps. It's that moment when all the hope and excitement you started with just kind of curdles into cynicism and fatigue. It's not about one bad date, it's the cumulative weight of the whole thing.
So what's really driving this? Well, the research points to a whole collection of common culprits. It's stuff we all know, right? Like the sharp sting of being ghosted, or that deep disappointment when a connection that felt so promising just fizzles out. It's the frustration of dealing with deception, that raw feeling of rejection, and the sheer monotony of having the same draining "hey, how are you" conversation over and over again. And of course, there's just plain swiping fatigue, the mental exhaustion from judging hundreds of faces. It all adds up.
Okay, so we've seen what causes the burnout, but now let's dig into the why. It turns out, a huge part of the problem isn't actually you. It's baked right into the design of the apps themselves. This brings us to what we can call the architecture of anxiety, the specific ways these platforms are built that unintentionally fuel our insecurities and our perfectionism.
This quote just gets right to the heart of it. Dating apps can basically turn the search for a partner into a marketplace. Like it says here, romantic relationships are reduced to transactions. People become products on a digital shelf, and we're encouraged to evaluate them based on just a few photos and a short bio. This completely changes how we approach connection, making it feel way less intimate and a lot more like online shopping.
And what's the #1 currency in this digital marketplace? Appearance. Swipe-based apps pretty much make looks the main event, pushing us to make these split-second decisions based almost entirely on a photo. Over time, it's so easy to start tying your own self-worth to how many matches you get. You start to see yourself through the app's lens, constantly measuring your own attractiveness, and that pressure becomes a huge source of anxiety.
And this leads us to a really weird contradiction. On the surface, you'd think that having thousands of potential partners right at your fingertips would be a great thing. I mean, more options should mean a better chance of finding someone amazing, right? But as so many of us have felt, it often feels the exact opposite. So why does having what feels like infinite choice actually feel so bad?
Well, the answer is something called the paradox of choice. The promise of the apps, as you can see on the left, is that more options will lead to a better match. Simple. But the reality, on the right, is that having too many choices often leads to paralysis. It causes decision fatigue, dissatisfaction with the choices we do make, and that constant, nagging feeling that a more perfect match is just one more swipe away.
Let's break down those consequences a bit more. First, you've got decision fatigue. Your brain literally gets tired from making all those tiny rapid-fire judgments. Second, it encourages what's called a maximizer mindset. We stop looking for someone who is good enough, and we start this endless search for an impossibly perfect absolute best. And finally, it creates this intense FOMO, the fear of missing out. That anxiety keeps you stuck in a loop of just swiping, because you're afraid to commit to someone when someone better could be just around the corner.
Now, this technology doesn't just change how we search for partners, it actually changes the very nature of the relationships we end up in. And this has created a world of ambiguity, a world of blurred lines, that's perfectly captured in that modern term we all know, the situationship. So, what exactly is a situationship? You can think of it as the ultimate romantic gray area. Like the slide says, it's a connection that doesn't have clear boundaries, doesn't have labels, or any real commitment. You might be doing all the things a couple does, going on dates, being intimate, meeting friends, but you have absolutely zero clarity about where the relationship is actually going. This quote from a research participant just captures the feeling of a situationship so perfectly. You feel a mutual connection, but you're fundamentally unsure about the end goal. And this creates this constant, low-level tension, because you know that one day it could suddenly change without any warning or any conversation. Living with that kind of uncertainty is incredibly draining.
And here's a more humorous, but maybe a little too relatable, take on this whole modern landscape. It just speaks to this complicated web where old, clear-cut labels like single or in a relationship just don't really seem to fit anymore. It perfectly captures that feeling that everyone is kind of emotionally tangled up in all these undefined ways, all at the same time.
So this table breaks down the classic signs of a situationship. First up, you've got ambiguity. There's no defined end goal. Then, uncertainty. The rules around things like are we exclusive? They're not clear at all. Next, inconsistency. Communication, effort, affection, it can all just fluctuate wildly. And finally, the big one, no label. It's usually this unspoken agreement to just avoid the what are we conversation, which leaves at least one person in this state of limbo.
This whole culture of ambiguity has given rise to a new vocabulary of really hurtful behaviors. So next, let's look at this language of disconnection, these specific actions that have become way too common and the hidden emotional costs they carry with them.
Let's start with the most infamous one, ghosting. This is when someone suddenly and completely ends all contact without any explanation. They just vanish. And this is so damaging psychologically because it gives you zero closure. It can trigger these deep feelings of abandonment and self-blame because you're just left to wonder endlessly what you could have possibly done wrong. And then there's its insidious cousin, breadcrumbing. This is when someone sends you sporadic, non-committal messages just to keep you interested, but with no real intention of ever pursuing a relationship. It's the act of dropping just enough breadcrumbs, a late-night text here, a random like on an old photo there, just to keep you on the hook. It's all about getting validation with the least amount of effort possible. The psychology behind why breadcrumbing works is both really powerful and pretty damaging. The unpredictable nature of the reward, that text you've been waiting for, it works on our brain just like a slot machine. This is called intermittent reinforcement, and it's one of the most powerful psychological hooks out there. It creates this addictive cycle of highs and lows that keeps you emotionally invested, always pulling the lever and hoping for a payout that might never actually come.
So how can you spot this? Well, there's a typical pattern of warning signs. It often starts with that intermittent flirting. They're super charming, and then they just disappear for days or weeks. This leads to a clear incongruence, where their words just don't match their actions. You'll probably notice they consistently avoid any real emotional investment, keeping conversations on the surface. And ultimately, this all creates a huge cloud of commitment uncertainty as they dodge any and all talk about the future.
And look, these experiences aren't just anecdotes. There is a large and growing body of scientific evidence that backs up all these feelings. This, for example, comes from a huge systematic review that compiled and analyzed the results from 45 different studies, all to measure the real tangible impact of dating apps on our well-being.
And the findings from that review were pretty stark. It found that over 86% of the studies showed a significant negative impact from dating app use on a person's body image. And nearly half of the studies, almost 50%, reported significant negative impacts on overall mental health, directly linking app use to increased anxiety, depression, and lower self-esteem. This isn't just a feeling. The data shows a really clear and concerning pattern.
Okay, so we've diagnosed the problem from a bunch of different angles. And I know it can feel pretty bleak, but here's the crucial point. You are not powerless in this. It's time to pivot from the problems to the solutions. This final section is all about reclaiming your mental peace, with 5 practical, source-backed strategies you can use to fight back against dating burnout.
Let's walk through these one by one. First, limit your time. Don't let the apps become this endless time sink. Set a timer for 20 or 30 minutes a day, and when it goes off, you're done. This stops that mind-numbing scroll. Second, date with intention. Before you even open the app, ask yourself why you're doing it. Are you actually open to connection right now, or are you just swiping out of boredom? Third, focus on real life. Remember, the whole point of the app is to get you off the app. Prioritize moving to a face-to-face meeting sooner rather than later to see if there's a real connection there. Fourth, be your authentic self. Resist that pressure to create some perfect but fake profile. A profile that reflects the real you is going to attract people who appreciate the real you. And finally, and this might be the most important one, take time off. Treat dating burnout like you would work burnout.
It is absolutely okay to delete the apps and give yourself the space you need to recharge.
So we'll leave you with this question to think about. After hearing all of this, what's one small step you can take, starting today, to date a little more intentionally and protect your own peace of mind? It doesn't have to be some massive change. Maybe it's just setting that timer, or deciding to be more upfront about what you're looking for, or just giving yourself permission to take a night off from all of it. The power to change your dating experience for the better really does start with a single intentional choice. For more videos like that, subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn on the notification bell so you'll be notified when we upload new videos in the future. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Bye.